I welcome you all to our final intellectual salon of the year. I'm Joe Medeiros with Sierra College Press, and retired from Sierra College for quite some time, but don't want to leave just like the rest of you, right? So we've done a series of salons, intellectual salons, where we like to talk about different subjects. Last year we talked about time, and we had 8 different topics, different foci, from different perspectives on time, which was really a lot of fun. And we've had the same amount of fun with the topic of love. We're still looking for another 4-letter word for next year, and we've got some ideas that will be quite instructive, and looking forward to those. This past semester, we've done For the Love of Christ, an alternative Christmas story, Love, a Chemical Trick, by a biopsychologist, Queer Injustice on criminalizing love, and today, Eyes of the Heart, the photography of love. And so I welcome you all. This is a cooperative sponsored event from the Friends of the Library, the Sierra College Press, and the library itself. Our speaker today is none other than Sierra College's Rebecca Gregg, and I am so proud to be able to introduce her. We've been friends ever since I got here in 1990, but she had already been here for quite some time. I fell in love with her then, and I'm still in love with her now, as is everyone on this campus, which is a problem, you know, for all of us, not for her. I asked her a few things, and as we started to write down and so on, discuss some of these things, I just had to write them down because they're just too precious. Our Rebecca is a Southern gal, initially born in North Carolina, but moved to Texas. She lived all over Texas, East Texas, West Texas, Central Texas. My wife says if you drive all the way through Texas, you need an oil change by the time that you get on the other side. So it's obviously a big place. There were 13 people in her graduating class, and they all went to college. I think that's pretty remarkable. She attended Wayland Baptist College in Plainview, Texas. She got a scholarship for the highest ranking Baptist girl. She's come quite a ways since then, I'd have to say. She attended Texas Tech, University of Tech in Austin, where she got her BS. She's got her master's degree at California State University of Los Angeles. She's attended also CSU Sacramento, Sierra College, Berkeley, did a lot of studies at Santa Cruz, especially in photography. I asked her how many places in the United States she'd photographed. She's photographed in 50 different states and a territory in the United States, but she's also photographed in Russia, France, England, Peru, Scotland, Africa, Italy, China, and a lot in Georgia lately. I asked her different places that she took Sierra College students to photograph. And I like to start with the fact that for 20 years, she did trips into the Mono Basin and the Mono Lake, camping out there in the freezing cold with the students and so on, getting up in dark 30 for those sunrise photography and so on. Magnificent. So she loves the Sierra, the Great Basin. But she's also taken students to Great Basin National Park, Desert National Parks in Utah, Arizona, up in Washington, Mount St. Helens, Olympia. She's taken students to photograph in Florence, Paris, Vienna, Russia, Scotland, China twice, and down to Peru twice as well. Pretty remarkable stuff. Here's something more remarkable. She started here in 1968. Okay, and she just retired. So she completed her 48th year of full-time work here at Sierra College. We still won't let her go. She still teaches courses. She's going to do a show in the Ridley Gallery this next spring, February and March, photographs of fossils and seeds. I'm not sure if she's a photographer, a psychologist, a counselor, a biologist, a naturalist, tree hugger, dirt worshiper, whatever it is. She has taught more than 10,000 students here at Sierra College, and I asked her to estimate how many pieces of work have you graded. Well, if she estimated only 10 pieces of work per student, which we know is low, then she's had to grade 100,000 pieces of work. She spent a goodly amount of time here initially in the counseling department. She has a master's in marriage and family, or a certificate in master's in family and marriage counseling and so on. But she's always had a camera, and so she spent most of her time here sharing her love for photography with other students and so on. This is the most patient woman in the world, as she's very patient right now, wanting me to get rid of this microphone and give it to her. We welcome you all from the community, from the college, students as well. We will continue our salons next fall as well. If you go on to sierracollege.edu/events, you'll find about all of the wonderful things that are going on at Sierra College. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome our Rebecca Gregg. We're not giving her up yet. So. It's only for the recorders, so yeah.
I've learned when Joe makes one of those long, loving introductions to sit over there. You know, when you're standing here beside him and trying to look humble, but pleased, you know, that someone likes you that much. So I just sat over there this time, and I'm awfully happy to see so many people here in this season of light and love as we culminate our salons, but also move into the joyous return of the light. You know, the newspapers will always talk about this the longest night of the year. Well, the celebrations are always about the return of the light, and you will begin to notice it, you know, as we lose a little bit every day, and then joyously it'll come back, and that's what all this whole thing is about, and of course that's what photography is about. And so here are going to be some pictures, you know. But I want to engage you a little bit too, because I've given enough slideshows in my time to know that even if somebody really likes photography, as David Dixon does, or likes you, or likes to look at pretty pictures, or is enthralled by the topic of pictures of love, you know, what is this going to be about? And I wonder, can we get this a little bit darker along this strip? Is there a way to do that? I don't know. Yeah, I asked last time. I didn't think so either. So love is a pretty broad topic, as you know, and so for me it was quite difficult. I've not given this lecture before. I optimistically scheduled to give again in February at a local camera conclave. So you're a dry run. You know, you're like the out of Broadway, let's see if this makes it kind of thing. So you could give me some feedback after we're done here or something. But in thinking about the great basket of love, you know, and how we define it and how this is all going to play out, and then remembering your high school English teacher, narrow your topic, Becky, you know, and so I kept trying to do that, you know. It's like, holy cow, how do you get hold of this, you know? And so even to define all the varieties of love, so I'm going to get you to, so we say puppy love, right? And we know what kind of mature love is, and we know what loving cooking is, you know, or loving gardening, or loving, if you had to say, I love something, what would you say? I love?
Gardening.
Gardening, I love?
I love gardening too.
Cheater. I love?
My family.
My family. I love?
My husband.
My husband. I love? Walking. See, all those things, and so no wonder English is such a hard language, because which kind of love is that, or does it all come from the same place? Even deciding what to call this lecture was a little bit hard for me, you know, and so there it is. That's what we're going to talk about. So let's see. Here's how it's going to go. I'm going to show you some pictures. I'm going to stop sometime and ask for some feedback and get engaged a little bit, and we're going to, these are in the world of pictures?
We couldn't get the lights on.
Okay, cool, that's good. I chose things that I thought would work, but that's the best slide of the whole thing. It's got great contrast. No, let's see. Let me see if I can get this to turn on here. Yeah, can. Okay, so you know, I grew up in that in my high school years in that little West Texas town, and I forget when I saw this movie, From Here to Eternity, which was a very forward moving kind of movie. It has a lot of passion in it. It was a wonderful novel. But this image and that love scene on the beach made an indelible impression on me. I was only about 13 or so, I think, when I saw it, and I'm sure we didn't get it first run. We had a theater. I lived 7 miles from this town of 200 people. We had a theater when the people who came to work the crops came to town, then we would show movies. And so it wasn't a first run, you know, we would be renting that now from Netflix or something. But the movie theater, which was a Quonset hut, which is why I did that, would run movies in the summer and we could watch movies. So I don't know how old I was for sure, but about 13, 14. So, you know, the fires are burning, noticing people and having your first crush and stuff, and then I see this movie. Well, honest to goodness, now you might call me naive, but it's true. I thought this is what happened, that the waves came and you loved one another, you know, and it was just a magnificent scene. You might want to rent it to see, but that's what I knew. Before I moved to that little town, in the 6th grade, I believe, I had an argument with a girl while we were riding the bike, and I won that babies came out of your navel. And I argued so well, you know, I meant to go to law school during that long career of mine, but anyway, I argued so well, I convinced her that why would we have a navel, you know, so this was the picture that stayed in my mind for a long time. Navel, kiss on the beach, the waves come, you know, whatever, you know, so pretty confusing. This isn't going to be a sex lecture, by the way. This is going to be the sexiest thing you're going to see. So then I see, as I grow up and learn about pictures, that this is what was really going on. You know, that all those people were standing around, no telling how many times they had to kiss one another and get the wave just right, you know, and all that was real life. And that's part of what I find is awkward about love, is that sometimes pictures set us up for the ideal rather than all the work it takes to love that family, pull those weeds in the gardening, make yourself walk when you don't feel like it, and all that other stuff. It always requires something that's not usually captured in pictures. So none of these pictures are going to prepare us for a world other than the wave and babies coming out of your navel, you know. But there are a lot of good ones now about that. So this is a snapshot from my neighbor. I'm going to have to decide where to be, because so I want you to tell me what you notice. What do you see here? Do you think this is about love, first of all?
Yes, I do. I think that there's this connection between the old and the young, wordlessly.
Yeah. So it's a silent picture. You know, there are no words here. There is an exclamation on the side because it says May of '56, so that's about the same time I saw From Here to Eternity, by the way. But anyway, you see that love, though they're not speaking, they're not touching, but the eye direction connects them. And you also see the background and you see the focus on them. The picture's obviously not about the woods, because it's a nameless wood, you don't know where you are, but there's a sense of devotion and connection. So those are words that come up about love, I think. For me, I love it because there's a camera, if you were. So the grandmother, who is really the grandmother, would just be assuming that, but if I didn't know, the grandmother is taking his picture. And so what else do you notice? He's smiling. Another clue, which we're going to get in a bit, about what we take as happiness and love is to smile, you know, or contentment and love, to smile. So he's engaged, huh? What else? What else do you see?
A winter forest?
Yeah, so they're bundled up a bit. And this maybe spring, it's either fall or spring, or they're in someplace warm, we're having one of our warm years or something. Because he's sitting right on the ground, and they're bundled up, you know. So the one thing I want you to notice is this. That's the head of the photographer, right here. So they followed the Kodak rules, put the sun at your back, take the picture, And so it's a self-portrait of my friend Gloria and her son and her mother. But she didn't mean for it to be. She was in love with them and in love with that moment and in love with being out there. And now I'm in love with her because she's in it too. And there's a little triangle, that wonderful part of power of love. You know, triangles are such a strong force, but they're pretty bad in love sometimes, you know. And this is a pretty strong picture because of that, I think, because it places the photographer there. And so all of us sometimes forget, I think, that the photographer, it isn't this private moment. The photographer's always there. We don't always see the edge of their head, you know. I have a little collection of these kinds of pictures, and one I have of my dad. He's got a hat on, and so I know it's my dad because I recognize the little cock of his hat that he would, that little jaunty fedora he would wear, and it makes me feel so close to him to think about him wanting to take the picture of the people he loved, you know, because we didn't take pictures very often in our family, so it was a big deal. Okay, so what just happened there? That was bad. Whew, whew. Didn't mean for it to go black. So this doesn't show up quite as much as I wanted, but let's read this a little bit too, just like we read the other picture. This is a magazine ad, and it shows how we use and flow out this word or symbol of love. You can see it right there. You know, the we is kind of a symbol, isn't it? When we think of the we of things, that's a symbol of togetherness, which is another part of love. But there it is, the heart, and then peace of mind. And of course, I left this in. I tore this out of a magazine when I saw it in preparation for this, and then I thought, oh, rats, now I'll have to fix that, you know. But I decided, oh, that's sort of the way peace of mind goes. You know, it's a little frayed on the edges, and sometimes love is too. So I just left that there. I thought it was maybe a clearer statement. But why do you think they chose blue here as the background color?
Blue is peaceful.
Yeah, so it goes with, so they're connoting this peaceful thing, though you have that up there because you're not so peaceful about, you know, you have this little nest, Cameron. Of course, the nest is also a comforting kind of word that they've got going there. So they've got their marketing all figured out. Here's Subaru. I started to have us start a chorus of, you know, all of them, yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many, and I love the Subaru ads. You know, they made me feel good, and to see that little guy in his Boy Scout stuff singing the Subaru ad, you know, and stuff. The girl and the dog. Oh, I know. We can remember them. Huh? They're cool. So they've done the same thing, choosing blue. In this case, because it's the season, I think, because it ends January 3rd, and there's the heart. You can put your hand on the steering wheel, I guess, is why they have it, or maybe they're extending their hand to grab your money, I'm not sure, but there it is, the word love, again, outgoing, and I pulled all of these off the internet. What's your favorite up there?
I love dance.
Oh, I love dance, yeah, and Canadians like that, the heart doesn't show very well on that one. I think I love bacon. I'm a vegetarian, so that's it. But I love that dog that says bacon, 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 you know, and loves bacon so much. So we use that in a lot of different ways. I'm sure I could have one that said, I love Sierra College. Notice how many times the word I, so there's something about love that's generated from us, you know, that it's there, that I didn't even think about that until I'd chosen these. I just chose them for kind of a variety of love symbols. And it's a little bitty book, all from a woman who's collected heartstones on our coast of California, and now has a book of just pictures of rocks that look like hearts. And it's a pretty sweet little book if you're looking for someone on your Christmas list. You know, there's their name up there. So this heart symbol can be powerfully interpreted in lots of different ways already in photography. J.K. Gill, front cover of this month's catalog. I've never bought anything from this company because I'm not tall enough is the way, or skinny enough. But there they are. Isn't it interesting that they use the same color scheme? I didn't make this up. This black and red and stuff was the same color scheme in all these things, you know. Isn't that interesting? red for love because of Valentine's maybe, and we think of red connected with it a bunch. Lots of planning goes into a shot like this, even deciding who's going to wear the black and stand in the middle, the only blonde, right? And she stands with her leg open kind of a little bit so that you'll see that she, so that the pants will look thin and all. So lots of little, nothing's kind of unthought of in these sort of ads. This one's not so obvious, but what's about love going on here? All these are recent, So what's love here? Free shipping. The pragmatic side of love. Yeah, free shipping. And it is the part in red to match Pendleton. So they mean for you to see that, right? So how is this communicating love?
It's comfortable.
Yeah. So they're dressed comfortably and there's an intimacy in their space. Yeah. And he looks happier than she does to me. I don't know.
She's contemplating
Yeah.
how she's to look in the photograph.
Ah.
Because she doesn't really know yet.
Yeah. Well, that's true. They're models, right? They're models. So this. But we think of them and see ourselves. Part of what happens and part of the power, I think, of photography is that we are influenced by these things. We can, as my wonderful colleague, whom I also love, Tom Philibrown, and I spend a lot of time looking at these ads and things like that. And of course, these people may have just met 45 minutes ago, probably not, takes longer than that to put the makeup on, but not very long ago, or they might know one another, but we see them as knowing one another. And we also, without thinking about it on a subconscious level, think of that if we go out with our significant other, that we're going to have at some point a moment where we stop and lean against the not out of fuel car, not stuck in El Dorado County, and we're going to look at the lake and be happy and quiet and together. We won't have had an argument about, did you lock the door? Did you turn this off? I told you to fill up with gas. That won't happen here, We won't have to discuss about whose music gets played on the way up there and whose gets played on the way back. We'll be happy, And partly we're set up in an ideal way because of these kinds of pictures, because they just fill up our lives, And they're everywhere. This is a paint store. And there's that word again. They're pretty sloppy painters is what I think, But they're happy, And there's a photographer there ready to get them, to get this happiness. And here they've purposely not flagged the camera so that it seems more like a snapshot to have that brightness of the sun coming in, so they're taking a picture that they don't have to take in order to create something that looks more real to us in the way that a snapshot looks more real and more actual, like this actually happened. So is she leaving in that yellow cab, or is she arriving, or what do you think? The copy line's fairly clever, I think, to pull it into today, but to get back to intimacy, I think, again. So, and I like Tom, I like the typography of that, don't you? The S, the way the S is. Yeah, kind of looks like a parking meter. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so then we get messages not only, I think it was Chi who said family. So here, messages come about husband, wives, partners, lovers. Messages also come to us about families, and what family life is like and how behavior is, So they're pretty darn happy, pretty smiley. He's not complaining about, the weight of the boy, but why is this guy looking at us? Or maybe they want us to look back and get engaged. So we're having eye contact with that person, So everybody, and we make up a story about them. For one thing, that refuses to age. But this is actually this is the full ad here. So a little more cluttered, obviously, but still we're to see them. We see them under here. And these little design things, look at that. It looks like they're almost being bound up, you know, this string that's running around and kind of keep you in and direct you down to Hilton. You know, and it runs right and down there. What's that little triangle at the top for? It's the color of the Hilton stuff, you know, so it makes it kind of fit all together, you know, and all of that goes to this is the way a family should be, you know. And we buy it, you know. And I hate to say it, but I think we all are pretty heavily influenced by these kinds of images without thinking about it sometimes, you know, that they're there in us. So now we're just going to look at some. What do you see here? What makes this appealing? The smiles, laughter, and you know that's a 20th century, 21st century thing. People in the first photographs were just as happy, laughed just as often, but they didn't smile. And partly it was because it was longer exposures, but partly it was because it was a kind of formal occasion, you know, dress up, wear a tie. Partly it's because they didn't have very good teeth, you know. So it wasn't customary to do. Now, if you don't smile, people will wait. Come on, they'll hold you hostage until you smile, you know. And our little kids will, about the first year, they don't smile. 2.5, they're smiling that silly smile before you know, just look at me, you know, and they'll give you that corny smile. So we go for it. This is a professional picture, and obviously looks really different because it's professionally lit. This is too, but it doesn't look it. It looks more natural outside, so we believe that it's us. And it has also the thing we didn't mention too, the smiles were great, but how close they are, and how close the photographer is to them. You know, that's how, even if that's what we feel like, either whether it's physically or with the lens. At one point, we would never, in photography, have cut off the heads of somebody like that. You know, that would have just been, I'm not convinced. I wrote that on a picture Roberta made 40 years ago. Okay, this is a cluttered one, but what do you see going on here?
Having a good time.
Having a good time. So it's, yes, the wine is the important player at this good time here, but they are having a good time, and the signals of that are smiles. Smiles. Look at one another, relatively intimate. Isn't it interesting, and I can't figure out why, that the women are having white wine and the men are having red wine. And I wondered, I didn't look it up. Somebody do this for extra credit. Look up to see whether women order white wine more than men do. You know, I suspect they might. I don't know. Delicate, and it's, yes, I think. But the men can have the robust. Yeah, it's.
Thinking, you know, the interesting thing about this is the construction of it by an art director and photographer to place just that right balance in there, and why they would dictate that.
Yeah.
I bet the ladies are eating salads in the mail.
Now that's a good one.
There you go.
That very much is, yeah. That kind of thing. It's definitely sending an interesting
Yeah,
message.
it really is. And just that little foursome of, you know, you play bridge, but there's an interesting crisscross going on there that is important, I think, to this message, because it's not just what you do with your one person, but it's what you are doing with other people, friends of yours, you know, how certain roles and what it looks like to have fun and to love these friends, you know, to be together. So here's the laughter, but what a touching image. And it's an image right off the internet, you know, so why would I say it's touching? What does it feel, what's the touching part of this image? Old friends. And somebody's not doing so well, I think, you know. But again, the laughter, the joy that comes, and so there's some kind of commitment that you can feel, which is another aspect of life, I think. It's there. And all the symbols and things that we didn't know were going to happen when we made this public art piece. This is the Vietnam Memorial, and we had no idea how, because it never had happened in our country before, that people came and continued to come and put memorials, find their person's name, and or a high school chum's name, a brother, an uncle, an aunt, and put a memorial to them. So much so, boy, I did not expect that. So much so that the Smithsonian has made a whole collection of these. No one had any idea that this was going to happen, and it continues to happen. It's not a new monument, but it's a symbol of our recognition, and it's become beyond itself. So other symbols of love that are caught in, and I love this. I love the old hands, because then I can imagine not only my own little arthritic hand, but the sisters perhaps, because this is well after, or grandmother, or some, all of that. You're seeing hands without an attached body. So pretty big stuff. Well, this was just as big. The nation mourns the loss. And this is Queen Victoria in black. Her husband died when he was only 42, which was the life expectancy at that time. So, but not for people of wealth or education. That was for the masses. The number became 42, but he died suddenly at 42. And they had 9 children, which are, there must have been a lot of beaches and crashing waves, I don't know, but so they were very, and she didn't like childbirth, didn't like motherhood particularly, but it's a testament of her love for Albert, that they had a very strong relationship. She never again wore anything but black, another symbol of that love. And guess who that is right there? Who's that? That's Albert, yeah. So one of the ways that people used to do photography in those years is that if they'd lost someone, they would include in the picture a portrait of that person, and they would sit. There are also times when you see they'll put a chair, an empty chair, as some families will at early death set a plate,
Would this have been tied to the public mourning, so that this would have
Yeah.
been mass-produced?
Mass-produced,
Or
people bought them, put in their homes.
Okay.
So a way to handle the love of the nation, and the love of these figures, and she was part of celebrity. She becomes queen when she's very young, about the same time photography is invented. And her husband, Albert, loved photography. I use that as I do. Loved photography, and his love of photography really gave an impetus to photography, because she wanted to do what Albert approved of, kind of, oh, the king likes this, and I can have my picture taken for only £1, or whatever, like that. So it was a big deal. So tell me what symbols you see. You're going to see some more pictures in a little bit of this guy, Sebastião Salgado. What symbols do you see in this cemetery scene that are symbols of loss and symbols of love? What do you see here? What do you see, Diane?
A dog.
It's the
naked
dog.
lying by itself.
Yeah, the dog. What else?
The people up in the corner.
Yeah, and they're in black, in veils, and so they might not be here, but they're up there. Even the mood of it, when you see Salgado, pictures that I'm going to show you, this is so different. It's like there's fog, and usually has much more contrast in his images, and so the kind of the foggy veil, is part of what. And there's candles, so, and burning in the daytime, so that's like in church, or the dead flowers, which Victorians, this isn't in Victorian times, but dead flowers used to be kept and kept and kept,
Well,
symbols.
the symbol, I was going to address the symbol of the flowers, because it is one of the strongest symbols of love, and yet, and so we use it both as a testimony of love when people pass, but then also kind of a symbol of the mourning as the flowers die, and the loss of life.
That's so good, Tom, because when we are, have you ever been given flowers? Yes. Oh, you smiled, and on response to that, there came a smile. She smiled and answered yes. So flowers also come to us at special occasions, and especially with new love. Sometimes flowers come more often then, and flowers come at makeup time.
I think the photograph also implies, I mean, it's very busy, there's not a lot of contrast. And though I can't see an angel, it's there.
Yeah.
I know it's there in the photograph. So
Yeah.
it evokes a lot of
Yeah.
things that you associate with death.
The spirit is helped by that fog feeling, I think. It feels like that, David.
Right. The very fact that stone surfaces are used as a way of housing those who have passed on,
Yeah.
as a memorial to
The-
all of the memories we have of those people who are encased
Yeah.
there. The sarcophagi there, I mean, are all different too.
Yeah, very individual. And Salgado, when he sees this, he doesn't have to include those flowers. You know, he can frame it differently. He can focus on something differently. But he's choosing this kind of busy sort of picture to say something about, I think, the complexity of that loss and spirit and the way we deal with this. Even the pyramidal kind of shape is really interesting there. So this is an image also about loss, in a way, because it's saying goodbye, not so permanently, but maybe just to go on vacation, but there's a parting, you know. And sometimes that distance, what do they say about absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? So we have these thoughts about being away, and in fact that sometimes helps a stormy relationship sometimes, is to just take a break from school for a while, you know, and to take a break from that for a while and do something else for a while, because then you can have distance to look at the relationship again and come back to all those kinds of things. But she seems more ready to go maybe in that youngness of it, and he's kind of like
You know, that picture really conjures up, you know, images of places perhaps we've been.
yeah.
I was behind the Iron Curtain, as a matter of fact, and I remember seeing people wave just like that for the last time before they went to the West.
Yeah.
You know, so these people remind me of some of the refugees
Yeah.
that are leaving, you know, from behind the Iron Curtain and going to West Germany, for example. And even though they have smiles on their faces, you may wonder, how is that possible
Yeah.
for people who are escaping to actually smile? And yet, for other family members that chose not to go, but preferred to live in a system of tyranny, okay, for these people, it was going to be a new life, okay, and so we can be happy that they're leaving. But for us that are going to stay behind because we love a socialistic form of government behind the Iron Curtain, for us, it's going to be maybe moments when we will reflect upon this happy moment for them and wonder about how it is going to be for us for the future. I mean,
Right.
for
Yeah,
me, it just conjured
because-
up that idea
So,
immediately.
David, there's a couple things there that you're saying that really get me. I think I chose this because I too have been on the train and watched people saying goodbye, and now when we say goodbye, we've got our phones, we can FaceTime. It's not quite so distant, but you know, this thing reminded me of Europe, and so then that makes me want to say, when we see a photograph, the photographer's behind it, you know, that shadow in that first picture, but we all bring our own perceptions to that, you know, and it makes that a very rich kind of communication then. And then this also made me think of the poor souls that are trying to reach some better life for their family from Syria and from North Africa, and all of the terrible things that we're seeing. This doesn't hold that, but we've been seeing some horrible partings, you know, that just by
It doesn't
photography.
look like the train was manufactured in America either. It looks like
Yeah, it looks
it was
European, doesn't it?
manufactured
Yeah.
Maybe in India,
Ah,
Bangladesh, or perhaps even behind the Iron Curtain.
yeah. So it's a powerful one. I don't know that you can see this one well enough. It's a very famous picture by Ed Clark, who was a life photographer. And what doesn't show now is that on that man's face, tears are rolling down his cheeks, and this is in Warm Springs, Georgia, and the president has just died, and he's leaving, so the processional is going to go to the train station and take his body to Washington. And it's to me, it's the veracity of the image is partly because of the way other people are also, you can tell it's not just this man who's affected, but they're also aware of the photographer. The woman in the headpiece seems to be quite moved, I think, and so.
Do we know who the photographer?
Yeah, Ed Clark.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's an amazing photograph, I think, and it really shows love and our expression of love in other ways. So here's the ideal. This is a painting, and I think paintings can often, especially illustrations. This is Norman Rockwell's Thanksgiving dinner. I'm sure that if you think back on a couple weeks ago, or was that just last week? It was just like this, wasn't it? No one spilt cranberry juice on the table, and it was exactly like this. So painters and illustrators and photographers have always been after that ideal kind of to show us things. This is Rockwell making a little joke. He's being Raphael, and they're looking back and winking at us a little bit. I always think the perspective of this thing is so weird because the people would have their heads in relation to the table. I mean,
Is that actually Rockwell?
Yeah, this is the Rockwell.
This could be the original selfie.
Yeah, this could be well, no, Raphael beat him to it, but yeah, it's an early selfie, and especially just up in that corner. But I mean, look at the grandma. She's not very far from the table. It's so weird, but it was on the front cover of Saturday Evening Post, and it sets up the ideal for us. And with the family, the family that's there. I don't even think there's room to set that turkey in that spot. Do you? I don't know.
There's that, and that's the kind of the big difference between photography and illustration. While you can frame and set up a photograph, you have to deal with physical realities.
Right.
Here, you can foreshorten and do all kinds of odd things.
Odd
as long
things.
as it looks like it's
Yeah.
real.
Right.
And you can't really get away with that necessarily in photography, and those that do are really good photographers.
Right. And you know what else? Have more forgiveness for this.
Yes.
Yes.
And because we want photography to be real, and of course reality TV is real, right? I mean, that's why they call it reality TV. But apparently. So here we have license to do those kinds of things. So now we're going to work in photography and those symbols and, what we're going to, it's nice of them, the taxidermist, to float those things out there so you can be there right at that moment, Yeah. Here's a classic shot that wedding photographers try to do at just that right time of day. If you happen to be doing the lighting correctly, you can, or have some lights with you, you can create this right here, by the way. It says Christ's teachings on divorce, and it gives all the sections in the Bible, which I thought, I found a bunch of these, when you just do rings on the Bible, you can get all kinds like that. But I thought that one was a little foreshadowing. I don't know. But look at this for symbols, and things that we, especially around weddings, have a lot of symbology about, even the location there. That looks like it's down at the Palace of Legion of Honor to me almost, but there are a lot of columns in this country. But the way we dress, this is the oddest photograph, the way it's framed, with them kind of tucked in here. But why did he do this? Why didn't he crop in on that, I wonder? I don't know. But the wedding day, the happy wedding day. Oh. So they seem alone, they seem quiet, they seem like no mosquitoes are there. But there is a photographer, and probably a wedding party, probably the videographer, and somebody drove them there, all that. But it's beautiful, huh? And so it sets us up again for the romance of isolation and love, and the aloneness of love, and being with our true love in some very tall pine trees. So hopefully this wasn't too abrupt to transition, but that is a 9/11 poster that was put up in the sadness and horror of looking for the missing. In fact, in Sacramento, we had a show of those cards on K Street that came here to show us what it was like, and it was so solemn to see it and people's outpouring of love. But look at the image that they chose. You know, it was that happy wedding image. And there's her description, and she was on the 104th floor. And there literally thousands of these kinds of posters were put around that signify the love of the lost. So, pretty cool, huh? That's not that easy to do. If you want to try it next time, it's I just tried it recently, and I should have put one in here. It's not easy. I was trying to do it in Glacier National Park, and so we were cooperating, but it didn't work out like that. So, but that's pretty cool. And it's got all that thing, family, nice sunset, beautiful, here's closeness, you know, and the photographer right down there on the floor with them, you know. I love the cheeks, because haven't you done that to your kids or something, you know, or to your nephew or niece, and you know, and ooh, you cute thing, you know, that stuff. Yeah, the kids kind of panicked. Get these people off of me. And there it is with, yeah. There's sadness a little bit, huh? Like it's perhaps another parting or a getting there, or it's just a wonderful picture. I think it's internet again. Yeah, lovely. I have no idea who these are ascribed to. This is one of my favorite things. If I ever, to see people in the shopping malls, you know, walking along, you know, together, and it's just a very happy thing, you know. I don't know who's supporting who here, you know, it's maybe both. It's a double thing, but these street photographers, you know, are stealing moments of people's lives that they will never see usually, and so it's usually pretty anonymous, quick, you know, shoot and go kind of stuff, but it's really memorable.
Looks European.
It looks European, doesn't it? Narrow, and the streetcar there and stuff, yeah. Here I think this is subtle, because the pleasantness of the woman's and the directness of how she's looking at us. And then right across the table, doesn't this look like love to you? You know, that she's looking at the photographer, but she's looking at us now, and it's like the kind of conversation where someone's really paying attention to you, or they're listening, or you're listening to them, or you're sharing that intimacy. It feels like that. And so it's not, you know, remarkable. It's Laszlo Moholy-Nagy's wife, and he was a famous photographer, but that's who that is. And it's just the delight in her eyes there. You know, it's really, look at that. All about love. It's the love that the photographer felt when he saw it. Gosh, let me get my camera out real quick. And then she notices him and smiles. This is Robert Doisneau, and I'm going to show you another one. This is Robert Doisneau, one of the most famous pictures ever taken. Clearly more about love and in a lecture of love than that is, although I love that photograph and think that it's also a different kind of love, you know. So here's Doisneau's famous picture of the couple in front of the City Hall in Paris. And I don't want to bust your bubble like that second picture of From Here to Eternity, but these are paid actors who wasn't disclosed for a really long time that he paid those folks to kiss, and you know, and then that's the woman who was kissed, and that it harmed his reputation for a little while. Then people forgave him, you know, because they liked the picture so much. But yeah, he also took this one same year, 1950, and I bet he hired those people too, rather than just happening upon it, because he's planned out this time to have the other faces blurry, you know. but it's pretty wonderful. It shows a lot of life and love. And Paris is a place, I think, where there's lots of kissing and walking along, strolling and having that. And then this famous kiss, which isn't so much about love, I think. You know, at least she doesn't know this guy, and it's almost an assault kind of looking picture. But it's the jubilant thing of the war ending in Europe, and so maybe it's the love of that. When you see the big one, you can sometimes in the cuts see this guy's face, but see how this guy's smiling and other people are smiling. So there is a happiness to it, but it never has seemed to me to have quite the power of even the one that was paid for by the folks. But look at this. Now there's, yeah. And again, the photographer is right down on the ground, you know, so. This is when I commit the sin of envy, you know. I wish I could have taken that picture, you know.
Those coming from the belly button?
Yeah, that's what happened, yeah.
Is that a trick photography?
Well, what a perceptive person you are. Because we think of them as up here like this, like Kunta Kinte holding his baby up, and you know, but really this is taken down, and the dad's, so the photographer's up here, and the babies are lying down, and the dad's like this. You know, so they're all.
So it gives you the impression
that he's holding them up.
but
Yeah.
they're not.
But they're not. And in fact, this is off a Photography magazine cover this summer. So there's the way the cover looked. It was in June, I think, yeah. And balance is part of love, you know, being loved too much sometime, or too early, or too, you know, or too long. I told you we were done. No, you know, sometimes it's, balance is a big thing, but look at that next part, creativity and profitability. It was a lot cuter ad, a lot cuter picture when it was just sliced out, huh? Well, look at this. Isn't that tender? There's Muhammad Ali and his wife. This is Hank Aaron and his bat.
Great picture.
I think to think of that as the photographer or the art director, or, you know, it's really shows, and the fact that his eyes are closed like we, you know, do in prayer or kissing, you know, yeah. And I purposely put it by that one because when I saw those two, and I went, whoa, they weren't together in the same book even, you know, so it was just like, wow. And then it happens with people too, you know. Here we go. So touching, closeness, eye connection, smiles, all those in photography are about the kinds of things we feel in love. We know that this little baby probably just has gas, but, you know, it's, it's good gas. Yeah. Isn't it great? It's so cool. So these are both shot by professional photographers as the previous one. This is in the 1926 on the left-hand side in Paris, and the little girl that's singing, that's the love of singing, and that maybe the love of her job, you know, and she's touching the organ, you know, it's just beautiful, I think. And then the woman here, this is from the Farm Security Administration's photos in the 30s, so it's about 10 years of difference between those. But the men have very similar poses and kind of out guarding the world, you know, looking and stuff. But the women, that's a belly laugh, you know. We need to do that, you know, and that's part of that love. Who knows what, that's tobacco hanging up at the top there. So this is somewhere in the South, Tennessee, Virginia, somewhere like that. This is Ouija from the 30s. He usually takes pictures of dead people or orphans on the, like the fire escape. So it's so weird that he took these people who've fallen asleep picnicking on the beach. You know, and they're in their overcoats, so it's cold. He's from New York City. But it's just odd, I think. But they have to be so trusting. That's purse and stuff right over there, you know. Times have changed. but we still use that kind of abandonment to talk about closeness and intimacy and the freedom of just falling on the grass. I mean, when was the last time you laid down on the grass with a friend, you know? It's pretty interesting. See the symbols here? How could you not? So they were a couple, you think?
Yes.
And still are?
And they love the flag.
And they got that wallpaper on sale, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they bought it during the centennial time, who knows, but what an interesting photograph, you know, about love of country, which is also a love that we haven't talked about. Here's that symbol of protection, you know. And then when you take that known symbol and you have the musician protecting their cello, you know. So love is beyond people sometimes, have to protect this cello. So in 1862, I think this is one of the first celebrity kind of photos where this is Princess Eugenie and her son, Napoleon III's wife. And so touching, not smiling, a lot of empty space. So there's a sense of loss here. He eventually is killed in the Zulu War in Africa, you know, by he and his party. So this is kind of almost, when you know that and you see this, it's almost like those paintings where Mary is sad, you know, because she knows what's coming. And, you know, there's a kind of foreshadowing of that in this image. But it has some things that we do now with our celebrity pictures. You know, there was a kind of sadness generally and shock. No, I don't know why we would be shocked, but when Brad and Angelina got married and now that they got divorced, it's kind of like our celebrities. It's not married to Napoleon III, but the casualness, it's more modern times. So this is the traditional view, 3 generations, touching, serious, direct, strong, close, proud. This is the modern view. Our family is a team. I think it's very cute, actually, and there's light behind, you know, to separate them off the background, so the photographer's done that. And then that whole casual stance and stuff is more like the Brad and Angelina wedding picture. And not smiling, kind of tough, because it's all their shirts say things about the Bearcats, I think. Bobcats or Bearcats, yeah. And so it's all, you know, this toughness of team is there. Modern family. Can you imagine? I mean, Jimmy Carter was the first president to have his portrait made with a camera rather than painting, and they used that huge Polaroid, the 20 by 24 inch image. But this is a very modern look at, you know, a presidential picture. This isn't the one that'll be hanging in the Capitol, though. Okay. Now, you be the editor this time, okay? So I'm going to show you 2 pictures. This is John Kennedy and Caroline. Okay? Okay, there's number 1. There's number 2. Which one do you choose? Which one do you put? 2? 2? 2? 2? Okay, how come 2? What?
The eye contact from the baby.
The eye contact, yeah. Because in this one, wrong finger. In that one, it clues you in that somebody else is in the room. And we can make photographers invisible really easily. So we don't think about the photographer, but when that baby's looking over there, it's like when the, it doesn't happen very often, but when the microphone falls into the frame of the movie, or you know, somebody forgets their lines on stage, the bubble bursts for a second. So we can believe it when it's that one. You know, and also her big eyes and the eye direction thing. So these are wonderful images of closeness of family, all the things we've talked about. These are from the 50s again. And how interesting. This is the couple, the loving couple. This is the Lovings. And there's a new movie about their marriage and the Supreme Court. These are the actual pictures of the person by Gray Villet for Time magazine. And you can see it's all of the same things that we've been seeing in every other kind of picture when they take the go to the Supreme Court for the right to be married, you know, and establish rights for other people then. He dies in just about 8 years after these pictures were taken, and she continues the fight and continues on. Here there's the father, yeah. So there's the father, and the characters in the movie look, at least from my seeing them in magazines, look a lot like that. So this is closeness, you know, also a part of intimacy. And then I think devotion is a huge part of love, whether it's devotion to your garden, your family, walking, or whatever, is a huge part of that commitment part of photography. So I'm going to hurry here a little bit. That looks like a breast that's collapsed, but actually it's the crater of the moon that's made in 1842 by Sir John Herschel. And he's the guy who gave us photography's name, invented cyanotypes, gave us the name snapshot. Fixer was discovered by him to have the effect on silver nitrate. But he couldn't do photography very much because he was committed, he was devoted to mapping the stars. He mapped 70,000, named and mapped 70,000 stars in England and in South Africa. He took a 40-foot telescope to South Africa. He had 12 kids or 9 kids, I've forgotten. A lot of kids. So he was devoted to his wife and devoted to science. But when photography came along, he wanted to do photography. Instead, what he did was to help Julia Margaret Cameron get her process down. And these are images that she made, and very much like the modern look of soft focus, of having things be out of the frame, of having things be magical and not necessarily be about the real. But this is Cupid, so about love. Yeah. So his love helped her, and then she made these kinds of images. And that might be the thing that we do as teachers or as parents, you know, that might be, we may not make it, but somebody else might. This is also a Julia Margaret Cameron. Look at that. That looks like the Rockefeller thing. This is called The Whisper of the Muse. Gertrude Casabir on motherhood, and then I think you recognize this image. But can you see so this is Dorothea Lange. And that's the image that you see. These are other images that she took that day. So again, play editor, and it's no question. You know. Even here, the other one is so much more powerful because of, you know, just the interactions. Here she hardly seems to be aware of that baby. This is Renee Beyer, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner from Sacramento Bee, and you can see some of the same intimacy, caring for a man in Pakistan, sorry. And this is what Renee won the Pulitzer Prize for a story about this young boy and his losing his battle with cancer, and that's his mother. And then we have love of the outdoors, right? Carlton Watkins, Ansel Adams, maybe one of us, because now, because of photography, it's protected, sort of. Can you stand for me to go a little bit faster? Okay. So Eugene Smith, that's his cover. That's him. That's his messy darkroom, which he's one of my favorite people. My darkroom looks a lot like that. It did before I dismantled it. Things all over. Oh my gosh, how great. This is the first picture he took after he had been wounded on his 13th invasion in Okinawa in 1945. And he had a series of operations for almost 2 years. And he lost, he was hit in the nose and the jaw, and there were a lot of different plastic surgeries. And that's his children. They went on a walk with his Leica, and he takes this very beautiful, symbolically loving picture, I think. This is one of his essays. That's Maud Callan. She just brought those little girls' dresses in South Carolina, and she's nurse midwife. And these were in Life magazine again about her role. This is his essay on Pittsburgh. And then he went to Japan to look at Minamata disease. The factory there was putting mercury into the ocean, you know, that's that picture. And then the next picture is one of the most powerful pictures I think ever made. And it was actually suggested by the mother. And they allowed Smith to photograph. This young girl responds to her daughter. She responded to, he was there for about 6 weeks. He was beaten up by the thugs of the company. He was lost sight in one eye from it. On the Maud Callan one, the nurse midwife, he stayed there 6 weeks with them. You know, so it wasn't like photojournalism exactly, came to know them. But to me, this is the Pietà. You know, this is Michelangelo and the marble. This is just so beautiful. And since then, I'll tell you another great story about this. The young girl died, and Eileen Smith, who published it with Eugene, his wife, she went back to visit them, and she's part Japanese, and gave them the copyright back because the family didn't want to have it published anymore. Of course, it's hard to take it off the internet, but the copyright reverted back to the family from that, which I thought was a loving act, you know, about love. So we're going to do a few Sebastião Salgado. Here he is young, here he is old. Love your hair. You know, love the changes. He and his wife are true partners in their work, and this is the gold mine in Brazil. Looks like ants. Here it is close. He didn't take this with the long lens. He climbed the ladder all day long and back down, and if somebody slips off the ladder, you know, the dominoes fall. So it's devotion, and it's bringing attention to Africa, that blind woman in Mali, and weighing this little kid. So he worked for Alliance Française and Doctors Without Borders. He studied migrations. But and this is the drought in Ethiopia, that when he finally had been there so long, he was getting sick, and so he had to go back. You know, he was, his story is on TED Talks. So he had to rethink his whole health and his whole life, and now he's doing a thing called Genesis. So this is about icebergs and climate change. This is in you know, Antarctica. That's his plantation that he grew up on, and it's been deforested. This is a before picture. They've planted over 1 million trees, or almost 1 million trees, and this is the after. So his generativity is loving the earth, and he says about this project, this is my love letter to the earth.
Could you show it again?
Yeah, there's the before. Same location after. So it's all coming back. That's almost the best thing we can do is love a tree, plant a tree, you know. Anyway. So then let's have yeah, go.
People get a chance to see that show.
Oh,
the scale of the images is what's striking
It's
as well. And I mean,
amazing.
These are like major pictures. You just can't.
It's,
some are as big as that
yeah,
bookcase over there, taken from the air, and they're just
he's
staggering.
changed where he's working digitally now. He was working with the Leica just like Eugene Smith and film and all that, but now he's has the capability because of digital to go bigger, which makes you like technology. Well, obviously these are going to be about animals, so here we go. Ready? Because who doesn't love an animal, you know? Those poor beings that we have to take care of and get to take care of and see ourselves in. So I'm concentrating in this one on Franz Lanting and his wife Chris, and she's the videographer. And like the Salgados, they are pairs. This is some of their images that you've seen on calendars and in books. I think they have great humanity for letting us see it. It's like, you know, this is one of those where you could, what's he saying, you know? I told you to put something on. So the people accuse Salgado of romanticizing pain. They accuse these images of making, you know, not dealing with the hard thing. But partly what it does in the message, I think, to us is allow us to see it. So sometimes you can only take so much hard stuff, you know, and that we might save a bear more by seeing a dancing bear, you know, than a bloody bear. But it's the same things we feel, you know, and have. The touching, they're not smiling, but there's a sense of contentment, the intimacy, the closeness, you know, it's all there. So that's where I was going to stop with telling you about this guy. So we had Sebastião Salgado, because they're current workers right now. Sebastião Salgado, Franz Lanting, Franz Lanting lives in California. He's not from California, but he lives in Torrance. No, he lives in the more Monterey area. This guy lives in Torrance. And he's doing work in Africa that is just amazing to me because of what it makes you think about. And it's a little harder to look at in a way, but he's taken pictures of animals and then blown them up really big and put them in a landscape that kind of matches so that their landscape is gone. And so it's, again, about time and about what's going to happen without our loving the earth and without our doing something about it. And this is such a sad image. Not only are the elephants being hunted, but those are all glue-sniffing kids. So it's, you know, it's quite a painful image. And people working in the trash piles, you know. So anyway. So that's my take on love, is that it's complicated. You know? It's broad, it's deep, it's complex, it's much sought after. Sometimes it eludes us before we know, and then we regret, and all those things, but hopefully something will stick with you. So that's where I actually wanted to end. Can anybody volunteer an image that they still remember from those, that's in your head? Anybody, one that sticks out? Doesn't have to be the best one, just one that you liked.
The one that I was drawn to, well, there were many, but the one that comes to my mind immediately is the one of the African mother and the little girl looking at each other, and, you know, I mean, they have nothing, but
Yeah.
they're just enjoying.
They have everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just do that one. That's the aftermath of photography, and that's why it's important. There's a thing in your eyes called the aftermath. You know, you stare at this and you close your eyes and then you see it. You know, that's because of the way your rods and cones work and all that. But the aftermath of photography is that it sticks with you. You know, so enjoy the sticking with you too. You know? Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think now you can see why I asked Rebecca to finish up this series for us. And thank you so very, very much, Rebecca. And the one that keeps sticking with me is her.
What? Oh, I love you, Joey.
Thank you all very much
Yeah.
for coming.
Thanks so much for coming. It's lovely to see people that I didn't get to see very much, you know, so thank you so much.